Hai, selamat sore. Welcome to Road to Europe on Screen Instagram Live. I'm Noval Yazid, Festival Co-Director of Europe on Screen. Oke, hari ini saya akan ngomong bahasa Inggris lagi. So today I will conduct the session in English because we will soon be talking with Diego Santiago from Embassy of Spain, Jakarta, Indonesia. We will discuss about Spanish film industry. Well, basically we will discuss about the support systems of Spanish film industry from the Embassy of Spain, not just here but maybe around the world. I'm Noval Yazid. So you are watching the Instagram live of Road to Europe on Screen 2023, and stay tuned because we will soon, in the next coming days, we will soon announce the festival dates of Road to not Road to Europe on Screen, but the Europe on Screen, the festival itself. Sambil menunggu kehadiran Diego Santiago, saya ingin mengingatkan buat teman-teman penulis, buat teman-teman pembuat film pendek terutama, bahwa kami saat ini sedang membuka pendaftaran untuk short film pitching project, di mana teman-teman bisa mengikuti short film pitching project ini dengan mendaftarkan ide cerita film pendek teman-teman. Gak banyak-banyak, nggak panjang-panjang, cuma 20 menit ide ceritanya. Kirim ke kami sebelum tanggal 30 April, sebelum akhir bulan ini. Siapa tahu karya teman-teman bisa kami seleksi dan teman-teman akan kami undang untuk pitching di depan juri yang terdiri dari para pelaku film Indonesia. So, before we are going to talk to Diego Santiago, I just want to remind everyone that we are currently opening our submission for short film pitching project, where you can submit your short film ideas as original as possible, as wild as possible, as fun as possible. Send it to us before the end of the month, before 30th of April. You can check the information in one of our social media posts about short film pitching project. And right now we have our friend from Embada de España in Jakarta. I hope I pronounce it correct. In the meantime, if you have any questions about Spanish film, you can leave us your comment below. Hi, Diego.
I know.
Hi. Oh, great.
Hello,
now I can see you.
How are you?
I was just looking at the table. I'm good. Buenas tardes. I hope I said correctly.
I said correctly.
All right. Yes, welcome to our Instagram live session. And before we begin, maybe you would like to introduce yourself to our viewers and your current profession.
Nama saya Diego Santiago, saya bekerja di saya wakil duta besar Spanyol di Jakarta. Maaf, saya tidak berbicara bahasa Indonesia, untuk saya berbicara Inggris. My name is Diego Santiago. I'm really sorry because I don't speak bahasa Indonesia. That's the few words I can say because I've been here since last August. I'm striving to learn bahasa Indonesia, but if you agree, we will have this little conversation in English.
Of course, but considering you are here for less than a year, your introduction in Indonesian is superb.
Terima kasih. Terima kasih, Nawan.
So yeah, you've been here since August, but this is not your first post in the embassy, right?
I'm a civil servant. I'm part of the diplomatic corps of Spain, and we do different kind of jobs during our career. I've been posted to Brussels previously, to the diplomatic service of the European Union, and also in Argentina, where I dealt with consular affairs, which also involves something about cinema, because cinema is everywhere, and hopefully for those who like it, like you and me, it's everywhere. And now here in Jakarta, I'm deputy head of mission and also in charge of cultural affairs.
In your previous post, have you been in charge with cultural affairs or cultural events as well?
In different kinds of areas, because, for example, in Brussels, I dealt with education and cultural relations with Latin America, which is very broad because in headquarters of a diplomatic service, we deal with programs and the design of programs, we don't actually see its implementation. And the subsequent posting in Argentina, it was the other way around. I dealt with the promotion of the Spanish culture in a certain part of Argentina. So I saw producers, even actors, even people who were willing to participate in movies that were being produced in Argentina from the Spanish side. So I've seen more or less both sides of the design and implementation of cultural policy.
Yes, since you mentioned, I also noticed that some Spanish films I've seen were actually shot in Argentina, if not in Mexico. All these Spanish-speaking countries. So if you can talk about how do these Spanish-speaking countries cooperate when it comes to film production? Like, are there some kind of agreements or production pacts between these countries that perhaps have been existing for years?
It's quite an exciting story because cinema has been one of the most successful parts of culture that has been joined together in the realm of all Latin America, what we call Iberoamerica, which includes all Latin America, Spain and Portugal. And it has really crossed our borders and it's everywhere. As you mentioned, a film can be produced in Mexico. The actors and actresses can be from El Salvador. The directors from Argentina, and the location is in Colombia. This is one of the beauties of seeing how the common language or the common culture can give way to a big production that includes a message that can be understood all over the world. So we have seen this since a program was established in 1995. Well, 1994, it was decided. It's called Ibermedia, which is part of the Ibero-American community. And it started like this, like you take a good script from somewhere in a Spanish-speaking country, and you decide to establish some connection with people from other countries. Currently, it's everywhere. That's why we don't see it, because it's everywhere. Because most the films that are produced in Latin America or Spain that you can see in the cinema, in the end, they have some kind of contribution from this large amount of people who cooperate to produce the final result that you can see today, either in the cinema theaters or Netflix, anywhere. It has this background of people cooperating from different countries. And of course, it has a governmental umbrella, but it has gone much beyond governments, because it's already enshrined in the way producers, directors, actors think, that you have to take into account other countries, what's going on in other countries, to look for the good script, the good character, what they're looking for. So it's a huge thing for us.
But, since all the productions have been happening in different countries, but from your point of view, are there any actually, for sometimes for us, where Spanish is not our core language, sometimes we tend to see the similarities of a Spanish-speaking film, be it either they come from Spain, either they come from Argentina, or they come from Portugal or different countries. But from your point of view, were there actually any basic differences of Spanish-speaking films made in Argentina, in Spain? Maybe the way the characters speak, maybe the way the story is being told. What are some basic differences?
Well, we have these two sides that we cooperate among Spanish-speaking countries, because we have this huge cultural basis that put us together. But at the same time, I guess the grounds for the decision on a story is always national. In the end, it's the script writer, or currently the script writing team, because it takes a lot of people today to put a script, a very good script together. We have a very rich national history of script writing, producing, and actors that devoted themselves to the national culture. In fact, I guess it's a common phenomenon also in Indonesia, for what I have been reading, that cinema in the beginning was something that wanted to show the basis of society, to show it to those citizens that were being recorded, or the public was thought as national. It is with the development of international big film industries that Spain also adapted. But our history is also a national history of cinema, where it was the person buying some oranges in the market that was being recorded. The story was based on our history, and it only grew international in the last 20, 30 years. Now that process has been fascinating for us, because suddenly we discovered that the stories that we were telling to ourselves nationally were also interesting for the rest of the world.
And I'm just curious. In Spain itself, do you release, or rather, do cinemas release Spanish films made outside Spain, like either Argentina or Mexico? Are they released commercially in local cinemas as well in Spain?
They are part of what the public requires. You need to always have some variety in the catalog, so that people decide. I guess even the industry thinks in this term, that the public requires some variety on the culture, on the message, some story that has not been previously told. Those stories normally come from another country, so the people always require something from it that is produced nationally, because they are looking for it, the stories that are very close to the citizen, but also stories that tell you something that rings a bell to the citizen that is taking part of, in some other way. For example, in Indonesia, if you produce a huge film that tells a human story, I'm sure the public will require to have this in the catalog, in the cinema. So of course it's an open market in a way, with the world market taken widely, to attract cinema from all over the world.
All right. And now I would like to ask about how, well, since you are coming from the government side, the embassy side, how do you work together with the Spanish film industry to promote Spanish film overseas? In your capacity, I would say, diplomatic capacity.
First of all, it's through people like you now, because it's a huge industry. So it takes a lot of preparation for the government to know how to adapt to different kinds of public, and what is the narrative to tell. I think there is a common understanding that the diversity in the current diversity in the Spanish culture is one of the main messages that cinema is there to promote. So the government has this huge industry that works privately, and cinema reflects some values about the Spanish society. First of all, that diversity that is it's inextricably entangled currently to the work of producers or screenwriters, and that's what's included in the so-called catalog or ideas of the promotion. We have an institute that is quite relevant for the film industry in Spain, because when you have to enter this competitive market anywhere in the world, you need this first impetus to enter the list of people who are followed, of those producers, writers, actors who are trying to become part of the industry. This institute is called Institute for Cinema Production and Audiovisual Arts. It's there since 1995, which is precisely when Spain was changing. The Spanish society was becoming richer and richer, and at that moment, this industry started, and the institute with it. The institute selects movies, selects for foreseeable cooperation with some country with whom we haven't thought of cooperating, and put also funds, which are always important. The financial side is always important. It has evolved a lot. At the beginning, it was through grants to producers that were presenting a good story, and they were granted some money to produce it. Now it has evolved so much that during recent years, we have even seen that some locations are promoted and they have financial benefits or tax rebate to avoid, I don't know, those first investments have to be promoted. So this is very interesting for me because I remember, that's a personal story, when I was a child, that the only thing that was really well known about Spain in the international cinema was locations, because quite an amount of important classical movies were shot in Spain. So the people only knew about the environment and nothing about the film industry in Spain. Now we have gone back to that locations are also very good in Spain. So we have this promotion of actors, actresses, novel artists, but also the country as a whole, because it's a good place as the industry is so developed to go and shoot.
All right, and speaking of location, actually, some Indonesian films were also shot in Spain, in different parts of Spain, actually. Well, not that many, but at least before pandemic, I can say like at least in every year there's like 1 or 2 films being shot in Spain and released commercially here. I'm not sure if that the fact that the film is being shot in Spain also drive number of tourism, because this is like the cause and effect. I'm sure that you've heard these stories maybe from other countries as well, like, you know, seeing Spain on screen make them want to visit there.
Well, you most of all, like many others, you know the powerful side of cinema, that we can promote a country in many ways. You can explain the country however you try to explain it, but a simple image in a movie theater is really powerful. So it's true that we are trying to promote all this package of ideas, that it's not only about tourism, the quality of our heritage, but it's also the quality of life there. And quality of life can only be shown through statistics, which is difficult to follow, but to this image. And this is part of what's been, the government has been trying, and also regional governments, to try to attract people to see how beautiful the environment is and how quality of life is there. Of course, there are some historical, for example, films that have been shot there quite recently that tells another story. But this effort to show how beautiful it is takes back the idea from the 50s that Orson Welles goes there for some reason. Dr. Chivago is shot there for some reason. And now the country has evolved a lot, but it's back to this idea. So we are like that we have this kind of possibilities. I don't think that it can be defined as an administrative effort, because it's the whole of the Spanish society that has been promoting this, attracting, for example, treating well as you treat well tourists, as you treat a crew members that come to Spain to produce. They can see this. They have the tax benefits, the administrative effort to organize everything around, because you have to have some location that has to be preserved, and you need the police, and you need the civil servants to take care of it, but also the citizens. And I remember being part of this, being part of the public that is watching some actor shooting in Spain somewhere, and I was excited, and I could see the excitement in the people. So that also part of what the society can offer, that you are welcome here, and we are so excited that you're here shooting your film. So
yeah, Yeah, you also briefly mentioned about that your embassy has a package of Spanish films for promotions. Yeah, so if if you can share us who curated or compiled this and how often this gets updated, and more importantly, how do we access that? I mean, outside Europe on screen, of course, but I mean for other festival who wants to access it, like
Yeah.
how can they do so?
Well, that's the moment where I can congratulate and thank you because for the last so many years, 9 years now, I think, you have been promoting European cinema in Jakarta, which is quite an effort. I have seen it from last
Mm.
year in terms of two different festivals, but what you're doing this year, for example, having this preparation, this Road to Europe on a screen, is part of
Yeah,
what we are seeking. Like, okay, so you are showing one side of the modern or current cinema because you have your very good rules about it has to be recent films in the last three
right.
years, but we have all
Yes.
this heritage
Mm-hmm.
that we want to show. So the
Yeah.
creators of this catalog uh, try to have this combination of historical films that prove the
Yeah.
quality of the Spanish films for those who actually look at how an industry evolved. And we also have more
Mm-hmm.
recent films that are not from last year because they are still in cinemas, so it's a different kind of
Yeah.
effort, but that are also there to see how national cinema has evolved. It's a different role from the market role. It's not
Mm-hmm.
only what people might like or what people like during previous years, but also what reflects the history of the country. In
Mm-hmm.
order to have access to the catalog, anybody can just contact the embassy, and we are really happy with some time we have because we have to prepare the film and subtitles because in Indonesia sometimes
Yeah.
we are able to have it in different kinds of subtitles depending on the date of the movie. But anybody can write to the embassy and
Okay.
ask us about the catalog and the idea from some for some kind of festival, and we will be happy to share what we think might adapt to the specific festival or program, as you do and do it quite right with all of European Union member states.
Yes, and I've seen the catalog in recent years, and actually, I mean, the content is very exciting, especially when it comes to past films. Like sometimes I get to see the early works of Almodovar back in the 80s, and some other directors as well, if Buñuel as well, um, the early works of his. And so I would like to know, have you, I mean, in your previous post in previous countries where you were posted in, have you made use of this
Yes.
catalog and did a screening there?
Yes, we did because people had well, I'm proud to see that people actually really know about our cinema, that people are demanding to see
Yeah.
something that, okay, they have seen the films from the movie theaters of the last 10 years, and they are curious about it. But we have, most of
Yeah.
all, tried to do a specific thematic short festivals. Okay, so we have horror movies, something that you don't know about that. You have
Oh,
thrillers,
nice.
very good thrillers, in fact. But
Yeah.
it's not really well known by the public because we know and we are really proud that people like Almodóvar, Penélope Cruz, Antonio Banderas are well known, and we are so proud of it. And we also want to
Yeah.
promote that. Okay,
Yeah.
so good quality cinema is as anywhere is covering several sectors. So if you want to horror movies, we also have horror
Mhm.
movies that will be horrifying for the public who want to follow this kind of movie. So it's part of what we'll try to do, to find sectorial or specific festivals that deal with the sector that can also be promoted. So we have also that in the catalog.
And right now with the, I mean, well, Spanish cinema has been very popular, but I also noticed that in recent years, Spanish series have become extremely popular. La Casa de Papel, The Money Heist, Elite. Yeah, I want to know if the what you call that. Do you happen to know if the Spanish film industry have this system to nurture creative talents, and whether there is an incentives or subsidy from government to help elevating the qualities of these talents and storytelling, especially because to be honest, the quality is superb, among the best in the world.
Thank you. No, I think you have mentioned the keyword nurturing, because it took a huge effort for years to be financing and producing and supporting in many ways the quality of the cinema. Of course, we have to mention those people who are at the beginning. You mentioned one, Pedro Almodóvar.
Yeah.
The fact of having some artists that Pedro Almodóvar or even Luis Buñuel before, and actors or actresses like Penelope Cruz or Antonio Banderas that were going overseas and being well known outside Spain, it promoted in a way that the society accepted that it can be done, that you can tell a good story from your country, wherever you come from, and that started to have an impact on the promotion of academies, on scholarships to go to the academies, on having some public facilities for people to work on the techniques, the production, audiovisual arts that it takes it takes a family, not to there's a whole town to as the saying goes, and it's not only what we see, I think, which is the star in the international film industry. It takes thousands of people. It's calculated, I think, that currently Spain has 72,000 professionals in the sector, and it's only in the sector. And the definition, of course, includes many people, and many of those who work behind the scenes. But also those people have to study and have to study a lot. They have to go to academies, and they have to see that the work is worthwhile. That ends up in having the Money Heist or Elite. But in the end, you have trial and error. You have hundreds of movies being shot every year. Some of them are successful, some of them aren't. But this idea within the society already that our cinema is accepted as having an international recognition was at the beginning. And now you have festivals, you have grants, you have prizes, all these kind of things motivate people, I think, to think that what we do is acceptable for the international public. So this is part of a good story. Of course, there are some issues that have to be faced by the industry and administration, which is basically to renew itself. What's a good story? But I was telling you before, I think, on the basis of what I read, that no one can now imagine a good script being written by one person, because our literature is the basis. It's quite rich with all the Latin American literature also, but you need a whole team to have this kind of production. That professionalization and internationalization of the industry was very good to our productions.
And speaking of international, since you mentioned that you have done, I mean, you've organized screenings in your previous post, you've talked with, obviously you've talked with audiences from different countries as well. What, I mean, from their responses, why do you think Spanish films are popular? I mean, what kind of comments that you received from the screenings that you organized? What were the comments about Spanish films?
I think I would mention literature as the basis for that. Our literature is quite rich, so
I agree.
I think that as our human stories that have been told and have been accepted as telling some kind of message that can be understood by any human being. Cinema, the national cinema took the relay from literature and had this idea that you have to tell stories that go to the basics of human nature. You have to speak about joy, passion, health, being sick. You have to speak about really basic human emotions or issues or conditions in order to be accepted all over the world. Because even if your culture is very rich, we have movies like any country, I guess, that can only be understood if you have been born there. It's just the public that is thought for this movie. But in order to create something that is more humane, you have to think of all those conditions. We have very good dramas. We have very good comedies that go back to the basics in order to be understood. I guess that it's just literature that nurture this idea. So.
And I couldn't agree more, especially on two things. The literature, Spanish literature has been a staple in the literary history for years, and so I guess everybody is used to do a proper storytelling. And you mentioned about passion, and I realized that despite the different genres of Spanish films I've seen, there is always this spark of energy, spark of passion that is apparent in the films, makes the film somehow vibrant and more alive.
Thank you. I think it's part of not only what, you have these ideas that having a happy society is part of the reflection on either cinema, literature, paintings. I think this idea that literature and all the rest of the arts have to serve society in this way, that even if they are telling a very deep drama, they have to have some background on how it can be, how the joy of life can be preserved somehow. So I think that's part of the good message in our very good dramas, that okay, so you have to cope with it from a calm and joyful way of thinking, because if not, well, what is life? No. So I hope we keep on with this passion.
That's true. And Diego, I understand that you have an event coming soon, in the next few minutes. But I couldn't help asking you this: top 5 Spanish films of all time for you.
Well, that's a tricky one because I have to choose. We have hundreds of them, and I'm proud of very rich history. But if I have to mention it just privately, I would say that we at least one in every sector, so that the public that is watching us can have a different idea depending on what the person wants to see. But I would say for comedy, it's a Spanish affair. Its objective is the blockbuster in the history of Spanish cinema. Dozens of millions of people went to watch it. It's Ocho Apellidos Vascos in Spanish, the Spanish affair. If you want thriller, it's a well-acclaimed movie from Alejandro Amenábar. It's The Other. It's quite well known, and it's very
I like it.
It should. About horror, that dimension that we have quite a recent rich history of horror movies. I would mention just one because one of our most well-known actresses is there. Is The Orphanage with Belén Rueda. I think 2008, quite a good movie. And I have to mention drama because we have Pedro Almodóvar, and I don't know if it has no classification if Pedro Almodóvar works. So, but I would mention Talk to Her, for example. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And and social
Yeah.
cinema also, because I think from the neo-realist tradition that came from Italy in the 50s, I think we have very good movies, and this
Yeah.
heritage is reflected today. We have one movie that is called Food and Shelter from 2015 that
Okay.
is very
Okay.
good to depict the reality of those who are less favored in societies, which is also part of what
Mm-hmm.
cinema is expected to reflect. I'm sorry because I have to mention 5 movies, but I can talk dozens. I guess like you, and I'm happy that you see most of it. I know because you are the huge expert in Indonesia about European cinema. Well, I would mention those just for the
Yeah.
public to see how rich the whole scope of Somali
Yes.
cinema is.
And it happens that The Other and The Orphanage were released commercially here in cinemas back in 2001 and then, yeah, 2000. The Orphanage is, I think, 2007 or 8 or 6. Talk to Her was screened in one of the festivals here in Jakarta back in 2002. So yeah, people are more or less already familiar with Spanish cinema. So, well, it was,
I
yeah,
promise. I
it was
promise I will
good talking to you,
be. I
Diego
promise I will be
Santiago.
much more familiar with Indonesian cinema, but I have to recognize before coming here, I was looking for any Indonesian movie that I can find, and they are very good films. I'm not going to mention because I will be doing publicity that cannot be done. But really, this humane part of cinema is also part of Indonesian cinema. So I'm really happy that I can be here
Of course.
to watch it now.
Yeah. All right. Yes, and I look forward to our continued partnership with Spanish films. In fact, I've been wanting to do a retrospective on one of the Spanish filmmakers, but perhaps in coming years, with your suggestions and reference, I'm sure we can
Looking
create
forward
something
to it
exciting.
now. Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
very much for inviting me. And hope
So
this year, I'm sure European Screen will be successful in this road to European Screen. It's a very good idea because it promotes very much
thank you so
more
much.
what cinema about, not only watching the film, but looking behind the scene and seeing a lot of effort from many people to have this final product that people, I hope, can enjoy also this year.
Mm. Yeah. Right. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Noval.
Yeah. Thank you, and have a good
Bye-bye
day
to
ahead.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. That was Diego Santiago from Embassy of Spain in Jakarta, Indonesia. Tadi kita sudah selesai ngobrol dengan Diego Santiago dari Kedutaan Spanyol di Jakarta. So, buat teman-teman yang ingin akses database atau film paket beberapa film Spanyol, teman-teman bisa langsung menghubungi Kedutaan Spanyol di Jakarta dan mencari tahu bagaimana bisa mengakses koleksi film tersebut untuk kepentingan pemutaran non-komersial di event yang mungkin teman-teman bikin. So, if you're in Indonesia, anywhere in Indonesia, if you want to screen some Spanish films, especially classic Spanish films, and you want to have an access to this Spanish film package by the embassy, you can just contact the Embassy of Spain in Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm sure they will be more than happy to assist you in getting the access of these Spanish films. Oke, hari ini cuaca panas sekali di Jakarta, lumayan bikin gerah. So so that's the end of today's session. Sekali lagi saya ingatkan buat teman-teman filmmaker, jangan lupa untuk mendaftar short film pitching project sampai tanggal 30 April ini. Cukup kirimkan ide cerita dan data diri kalian. Informasi lebih lanjut berserta link pendaftarannya silakan cek saja di postingan di salah satu media sosial kami, baik itu Instagram, Twitter, atau Facebook tentang short film pitching project. Deadline-nya 30 April. Jadi sambil libur lebaran bisa mencari ide untuk short film ideas. Kita akan ketemu lagi di hari Kamis di jam 16.30 waktu Indonesia Barat. Nanti bersama siapa, informasinya tentang apa, nanti akan kami beritahukan di postingan kami. Demikian sesi kali ini, saya Noval Yazid, Festival Co-Director Europe On Screen. Undur diri dulu, selamat